What do a Spanish former World Cup winner, two French former World Cup winners, two Indonesian billionaire brothers, and Dennis Wise all have in common? Como. Multiple bankruptcies, multiple relegations, multiple promotions, a few legal troubles, and just a little bit of alleged racism sprinkled in for good measure. I'm Matt, welcome to the insane story of Italy's original yo-yo club. Over the last few years, you'd be hard-pressed to have missed out on the story of Wrexham. Minnows of English football taken over by Hollywood royalty and on an epic journey to reach the pinnacle of English football. And in fairness, doing quite well. They've gained back-to-back promotions from the National League into EFL League 2. For those that don't know, that's the fourth professional tier of English football, before being promoted again to League 1. Well done them. But their journey compared to Como is, well, quite frankly, boring. Now, I won't take you through the whole history of Como 1907, but here's the quick-fire context. Como 1907 were founded in Como, obviously, the Lombardy region of northern Italy in 1907. Obviously. But from a legal standpoint, they're kind of a different club slash entity due to bankruptcies and other reasons. And we'll come on to the bankruptcies in a minute. They were founded as Como Football Club and stayed that way for 98 years until bankruptcy number 1. They then became Calcio Como. That's a decent Italian accent. In 2005 and stayed that way for 12 years until another bankruptcy, when in 2017 they became the club they are today, Como 1907. Now during that time they have played in seemingly all divisions in Italy, spending most of their time in Serie B and C. Now as the title of this video suggests, they are a true yo-yo club, and here's why. Since the original club were formed, they have been relegated from Serie A 5 times, Serie B 7 times, and Serie C 3 times. On a brighter note, they've also been promoted to Serie C 3 times, to Serie B 8 times, and to Serie A 6 times. Just up and down and up and down. Which brings us to 2024, and Como reaching, once again, the pinnacle of Italian football with their 6th promotion to Serie A. This roller coaster ride of relegations and promotions is just the tip of the Como iceberg. And to really understand why this is genuinely such an epic tale, we have to go back to 2001. So, in 2001, Como were battling for promotion to Serie B. And during that season, a top-of-the-table clash between Modena and Como saw one of the most horrific things happen in football. Como captain Massimiliano Ferrigno put in a hard challenge on Modena's Francesco Bertolotti, sending him to the ground where he lay injured. Now Ferrigno accused Bertolotti of play acting, a scuffle broke out, Ferrigno hit Bertolotti and was rightfully sent off. But that's not the horrendous part. After the game, Ferrigno was still pissed off. He confronted Bertolotti, gave him a swift uppercut that sent him to the ground, where he hit his head on the way down. Ferrigno then just walked off. Long story short, Bertolotti ended up in a coma, suffering multiple hematomas and a heart attack. And whilst he survived, he required a metal plate in his head, which meant that his playing career was over. Now, Ferrigno was banned for 3 years and only just, due to some last-minute plea bargaining, managed to avoid a 10-month jail sentence. Now, Como managed to get promoted to Serie B that year, and then just 1 year later, they were back in the promised land, Serie A. But God, you know where this is going. They had a shocking year, sitting in the bottom 2 all season. Not only that, but you know that violent episode I just mentioned? Well, that sort of vibe spilled into the Como fans. And due to crowd violence, they had a ban on games at their home ground, the Sinagaglia, which, by the way, is in a gorgeous setting. And if you haven't visited, you should. I mean, I haven't visited, so I suppose I should too, really. Needless to say, they were relegated that year, and again the following year. And these successive drop-downs through the leagues proved somewhat of a financial burden on the club. And in December 2004, the club were declared bankrupt. Now, at the time of being declared bankrupt, they'd actually only been under new ownership for 1 year, when Aliardo dall'Oglio bought out Enrico Preziosi. My Italian is on point. Now, I only mention this because when the club were declared bankrupt, Preziosi tried to mount a takeover. He was, however, blocked due to also owning Genoa, who he bought in 2003 when he sold Como. And he would later go on to be banned from football for 4 months in 2009 for wrongdoing related to his time in charge at Como. Now, honestly, Enrico Preziosi deserves a video all of his own just for the stuff that he got up to, but I digress. So, after this bankruptcy, an investor couldn't be found, and they ended up dropping down to Serie D again. It was a difficult but more prosperous 10 years that followed that saw them climb back up through the Italian footballing pyramid to reach Serie B again. But of course, our story doesn't end there, and like an annoying sibling with a gambling addiction, Como found themselves in more financial trouble in the 2016-17 season when they were once again declared bankrupt and put up for auction. But fear not, I'm sure we all know who came in to save the day. Akasua Puni Essien. Who? Yep, you may know the surname. Former Chelsea and Ghana international Michael Essien's wife acquired the assets of the club, thus becoming the first foreign female owner of a club in Italian football. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, they're saved. Nope. So let's really ramp up this story. So it's the 2016-2017 season and Como have just been relegated to Serie C. After a season that saw them go through 3 managers and 41 players and still finish bottom. They've been declared bankrupt, purchased by Akasua Essien, and they then apply under a new company name to remain in Serie C. But that'd be far too easy for the Como that we've come to know. Due to not filling certain obligations, reaching certain criteria in Article 52 of NOIF, they instead exercised another subclass of Article 52, which allowed them to... Anyway, they were back down to Serie D, the semi-professional league in Italy. But fear not, the club returned to professional football in 2019, and this time they had new owners. Nope, not an Italian businessman, and nope, not the wife of former Ghanaian international Michael Essien, but a couple of Indonesian billionaires in their 80s via their UK-based sports entertainment company, Cent. Oh, and this purchase also meant that Como now had the richest owners in Italian football, because of course it did. It's Como, and we all know nothing is normal here. So, the Indonesian brothers Michael and Robert Budi Hartono bought the club whilst they were in Serie C, with the initial ambition to allow Indonesian players to develop in Europe. But as we will come to see, that mission has now far outweighed the initial goal. For starters, they brought in Spanish former World Cup winner Cesc Fabregas from Monaco, initially as a player, in August of 2022. Now on the surface, this may have appeared to be a strange move for Fabregas, but he was playing the long game. When he arrived as a player, he also became a shareholder. Once again, all normal in the world of Como. Do you know what else is normal? His former teammate, Thierry Henry, also became a shareholder, because of course he did. Now Fabregas would retire in July of 2023 and take over as the under-19s and Como B coach. However, due to the Como manager Moreno Longo getting the sack a few months later in November, Fabregas would then become the interim head coach. Told you he was playing the long game. But because he didn't have his UEFA Pro coaching license, he was only given special dispensation to manage the club for 1 month. So what would the billionaire Indonesian owners of Como do? They'd hire Oshan Roberts, of course. Now you'd be forgiven for not knowing who Oshan Roberts is, but in a nutshell, he was the former New Mexico Chili's manager, before becoming the under-16 and under-18 Wales national team manager, then more recently the assistant manager at Premier League mid-table stalwarts Crystal Palace. Oh, and he was also the man that Thierry Henry and Fabregas studied under to get their coaching licenses, so I guess the link kind of makes sense. Anyway, Roberts, with Fabregas as his assistant, managed to guide Como back to Serie A after finishing second in Serie B. And for all his hard work, Fabregas was given the role of head coach and has taken the helm in the next part of the Como journey. And one of his first points of business was to sign French former World Cup winner Raphael Varane on a free. And not only that, he'd also snap up former European Championship winner Belotti for a mere 4.5 million euros, because that's how Como roll. Now, before I go on to the final point, which I think sums up the Como saga quite nicely for now, can I just say a quick thank you for watching the video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please do consider giving it a quick like so that the old algorithm pushes it out to other people to enjoy. And if you want to see more of this content, maybe consider subscribing. Oh, and put in the comments if you know of another club that's got as crazy a story as Como's, because researching this has been wild. So, I told you I'd tie this up nicely. We've got former World Cup winners involved. We've got Michael Essien's wife as a former owner. We've got a fairly random Welsh manager. We've got octogenarian Indonesian billionaire brothers involved. Honestly, this story is like a kid playing football Mad Libs. A historic team are seeking promotion to Serie A. Their manager is Welsh. And the club themselves are owned by Americans, maybe. Indonesians. Their CEO is probably someone Italian football speaks the language. Dennis Wise. Now, for those of you that don't know Dennis Wise, he was a former Crazy Gang member with Wimbledon and also once sported the Lego hair look. Now, he joined the club in 2019 in a technical capacity before becoming the CEO in 2021, and he really made it about the community. So much so that on his way to work, he would see a homeless man just randomly sweeping up, and he gave that man a job in the maintenance department in the club. Nice. But of course, this being Como, whenever there's an up, there's also a down. Wise left the club just a few days after a Como player was accused of alleged racism by Wolves player Wang Hee-chan during a pre-season friendly. Now, it would appear that the incidents were unrelated and perhaps Wise was just unhappy with the direction of the club that Fabregas wanted to take it in. That's all speculation though. Anyway, if you enjoy football stories like this, why not check out my video on why Bordeaux relinquishing their professional status is merely a sign of a much bigger problem in Liga. See you on the next one.